Keynote experts. Recognizing that our successes, both organizationally and personally, are the culmination of our daily decisions, Mr. Veltri elevates organizations and improves lives through better decision-making practices each and every day. From ancient Japanese warriors to brain science, from business titans to academic research, Michael tapped wide-ranging sources to develop a groundbreaking model for better decision-making. Surprisingly simple and eminently effective, Veltri's approach has impacted some of the most prolific organizations and leaders around the globe. Michael is also a master instructor in the Japanese martial art of Aikido. He brings his martial arts discipline and precision to every keynote speech, inspiring, motivating, and educating audiences worldwide. The folks are going to do me a favor here. I'm going to bring up Michael Veltri, but I want you to give a big Kansas welcome to this decorated Marine veteran. Please welcome Michael.
All right. Thank you, Sean, very much. Thank you very much. Wow. Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Yes, the home stretch. Decisions shape our destiny, ladies and gentlemen. We know as HR professionals, one bad decision can torpedo our career, our company, or our community. Now, I had to make a real big decision at the age of 17. This is 17-year-old Michael. Okay? And I decided to join the Marine Corps at 17. And we got to do all types of unique training, including holding and throwing real live hand grenades. Now, we practiced with the fake ones, the dummy chunks of metal, and everything went great when we were practicing. But have you ever done that? Have you ever practiced for something? Maybe you have to give a big speech, or you have to have a talk with a loved one. You practice by yourself and it goes great, and then you try to pull it off and it doesn't go so well. Well, it's my turn. I'm holding the live hand grenade, and I forgot what to do. I couldn't remember if it was thumb clip, pull pin, or pull pin, thumb clip, but ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing there holding a live hand grenade. Now, somehow, I managed to rip the pin out. Unlike the movies, you can't jam it in once it's back, it's out. It's go time. I've got 30 of my Marine buddies watching to see if I'm going to screw this up and kill myself. I've got a Marine drill instructor in my face screaming at me, "Veltri, throw it! Throw the grenade!" And I've got a big decision to make here. 3 choices, right? Choice number 1, I make a good decision and throw the grenade. But we all know as HR professionals, even if we make a good decision, we have to execute it properly, right? Because what good is it if I don't throw it far enough or in the right direction or at the right time? Option number 2, I make a bad decision. I'm so overwhelmed by my fear. Now remember, I am standing there holding a live hand grenade with the pin ripped out. I've got this jerk of a drill instructor screaming at me. Or what about my ego? I've got my Marine buddies watching and I don't want to make a bad decision in front of them. You ever do that? You try to impress somebody and you make a bad decision. My fear and ego shackle me. I make a bad decision, dropping the hand grenade, killing myself, killing and injuring my Marine buddies. And then there's always the third choice, where I neither make a good decision and throw it, nor make a bad decision and drop it, but I do what? I choose to make no decision and suffer, having to hold on to that hand grenade for the rest of my life. So let me ask you, how many of the decisions in your business and personal life are like that? Now, I did work up the courage to throw the hand grenade. Nobody was hurt or injured, and I went on to have an 8-year career in the Marine Corps that I'm very proud of. But I would like you to all consider that decisions in business and life are like that hand grenade. You're either going to hold it, drop it, or throw it. And I hope they don't have you doing some crazy team building exercise where you're holding real live hand grenades. But we are all juggling hand grenade decisions. Do we hire this new candidate, A, B, or C? Do we fire this person? Do we get into or out of a tough personal relationship? And if you think about it, there's so many variables that affect our ability to make good decisions, from access to education, to the diversity of the team, to the locale where we work. And if I can get you to make better decisions by just a small uptick, the results will be geometric as you leap your career, company, and community forward. But here's the challenge, ladies and gentlemen. Researchers at Cornell University have discovered that kids make a whopping 3,000 decisions a day. And if you have kids or have been around kids, we all know they don't make the best decisions, as is evident by my darling daughter. The little blondie there is my daughter, Kiara. If you look closely, I caught her cutting off her little friend's top knot of her ponytail. Hey, she was so proud she just learned how to use scissors. Daddy, look. Now, her friend's mom never brought her back for another play date. I don't blame her. But little kids don't make good decisions. What about high school kids? We know they don't make the best decisions. Anyone like to golf? Golfers out there, don't go to the driving range and try this. Right? These high school kids thought this was a good way to golf. It's a whole new meaning to 4. And I don't know about you, but I remember my college days, right? I didn't make the best decisions in college, unlike these knuckleheads too. These guys said, let's give this a shot, okay? And adults with kids don't make the best decisions. Please don't take your kids to school this way. Now, speaking of adults, if kids are faced with 3,000 semi-conscious to conscious decisions a day, let me hear you now. How many decisions do you think busy professionals like us make on a daily basis? How many do you think, HR professionals? How many? 5, 10,000? What do you guys think? Researchers at Cornell University have discovered that we make a whopping 35,000 semi-conscious to conscious decisions a day. 35,000 decisions a day, 365 days a year. That's over 12 million decisions annually we're faced with. There has got to be room for improvement, as is evident, right? Have you ever seen this? Now, I went to go get gas the other day, right? And I don't know who made a worse decision. There was a guy smoking. I decided to stay there and get gas, and this guy got rid of his cigarette. A decision like this leads to a decision like this. Now, what I love about this guy is there's 2 bad decisions. There's the guy taking the selfie in front of the fireball, and then there's the guy taking the picture of the guy about to get consumed. And I really hope you don't manage this next person. I call this guy Darwin's favorite decision maker. If you manage an employee like this in safety situations, let's take a close look at how many bad decisions are going on here. All right, he's standing barefoot on an aluminum ladder in a swimming pool filled with water, working with plugged-in power tools on what appears to be an electrical system, but thank goodness he remembered to wear his safety goggles. Okay. So the challenge, ladies and gentlemen, is we don't have a simple system for making decisions. I'm sure you have many HR systems that help you navigate work. We have an education system where we all learn math, science, English. I never took a decision-making science class. So if we are making decisions based on misguided cues, or what our gut's telling us, or the latest fad, you're not going to make good decisions. Or you're going to make mediocre decisions at best. And I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with you being mediocre leaders in your community. Think of all the tens of thousands of lives we impact here in the companies that we work at. But if you can make a better decision, learn a simple system. There is no regret, because with regret, we worry about losing our job or missing out on a true life calling. But if you can learn a simple system, you can live regret-free and take over your destiny. And that's what I'm passionate about doing. I'm passionate about showing successful professionals how to manage those 35,000 daily decisions to leap the career, company, and community forward. And I've studied decision-making in many different contexts. As you saw, I studied decision-making in life or death combat in the Marine Corps. I've studied decision-making and battling my own personal demons in fighting for my life with cancer. I've studied decision-making in the boardroom and in many different businesses, and I've studied decision-making in academic situations. And this is what I've discovered. There's 5 decision-making traps we all fall into. Our employees fall into, our family and friends fall into. But likewise, there's 5 simple solutions to conquer those traps, to learn to make better decisions. Because it boils down to, if you're making better decisions, you have better leadership, better HR outcomes. And by way of example, I want to share a quick story about the Watergate Hotel in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Home to the Nixon scandal of the 1970s, but scandal is great for business. The Watergate thrived in the 70s and 80s, and in the 1990s, D.C. had an economic downturn. The Watergate property was bought and sold several times, and this iconic property didn't pay back taxes, and it closed in 2007. Sat empty for almost 10 years until a new leadership team purchased it. And they were faced with all these 5 decision-making traps I'm going to share with you today, but they used the solution to make better decisions and make the most mundane things fun and innovative. They decided to hire the costume director from the hit TV show Mad Men to design iconic 1970s uniforms for the staff. They made castle keys, stationaries, and pencils fun and innovative again. The 800 number, 1-800-612-1972. June 12th, 1972 is the date of the Watergate, the Nixon break-in. So it reopened 18 months ago, and the leadership had a goal of revenue that they exceeded by 180% because they made better decisions. Now, how great would it be if our HR projects were on time, under budget? Michaela, we were talking about the city budgets by making better decisions. Now, I'd like you to compare that with our friend Drew Greenblatt. Drew owns a company called Marlin Steel, based here in the Midwest. Makes one product: wire baskets for the bagel industry. Turns out the 2 big bagel chains need custom-made wire baskets: Einstein Brothers and Bruegger's Bagels. Drew bought the company in 2000 as an investment. There were 17 employees, $1 million of revenue. It worked every year. The Einstein brothers bought their baskets. Everything was great. Until it wasn't, right? 2008, China started manufacturing the same baskets for less than half the cost. Drew manufactured them for $12 and some change. China was getting them to the client for $5. Drew was falling into these same decision-making traps as the Watergate leadership, except he didn't have a system. He was days away from his business going out of business, and he was working the phones with his 2-person sales team trying to sell his overpriced, obsolete baskets when Lady Luck smiled on Drew. An engineer from aerospace giant Boeing called him. Drew answered the phone, and the engineer said, "Drew, I looked your company up online. I need 3 dozen custom-made wire baskets in 2 weeks. Can you get them to me?" Drew quickly did the calculations and said, "Yes, Mr. Engineer, we can get them to you, but it's going to cost about $26 per basket." The engineer said, "Here's my credit card. Let's buy them now." See, $26 per basket was nothing compared to this multi-billion-dollar aerospace contract he was working on. So, by chance, Drew found a whole new market for his company. Every manufacturer, from automotive to aerospace to IT to consumer products, need custom-made wire baskets to hold their machine parts. So, as of now, Drew's company has 40 employees, 10 times revenue, $10 million. But I don't know if Drew's going to be around a year from now because he relied on Lady Luck saving his bacon. And do you want to rely on Lady Luck guiding you in your hiring decisions, your firing decisions, your personal decisions? I don't. So how can we be more like the responsible leaders of the Watergate when we're faced with big hand grenade decisions or little hand grenade decisions? We have the confidence to move forward and not rely on Lady Luck. The Japanese have a concept called mushin. This is my best-selling book called The Mushin Way to Peak Performance. And the word mushin is Japanese, and it means no mind. But I'd like you to think of it as clarity. Clarity that allows us to see the right decision at the right time, all the time, especially when we're faced with 35,000 decisions coming at us fast and furiously. It was developed, this concept, on the feudal battlefields of Japan, where the samurai warriors fought to the death with razor-sharp samurai swords. Life or death decisions were made in milliseconds. Practicing mushin clears the mind of fear, ego, guilt, obligation, allows you to see, like a calm body of water, a reflective mirror, the situation clearly for what it is. It's the clarity of the enlightened warriors, ladies and gentlemen, and we're all warriors fighting for our career, company, and community. I want to arm you for decision-making battle so you become decision-making artists in every situation, business and personal. So let's dive right in and look at the 5 decision-making traps and how to conquer them. Trap number 1 is a trap of clogged arteries. Now, what do we know about clogged arteries? Hopefully you don't have them in the body, because if we do, we can suffer a massive heart attack and die. Now, our decision-making arteries are clogged, all of ours. We have all become the frog boiling in that proverbial bubbling cauldron of electronic distractions. Take a guess now, and it's not 35,000. How many times a day do you think busy professionals like us look at their smartphones? Some of you didn't hear me because you're looking at yours now. Okay, it's not 35,000 times, but it's like, how many times a day do you think we look at our smartphone? What do you think? 300, 100? Yeah, researchers have found out that professionals, not kids, look at their smartphone about 150, 200 times a day. Some heavy users will look at it 1,000 distracting times per day. Researchers have discovered that professionals with a smartphone are connected to the workplace 14.5 hours per day. That means the first thing you see when you wake up in the morning is your work email, text messages, calendar items, to-do lists. Be honest, let me see a show of hands. How many of you use your smartphone as an alarm clock each morning? Yeah, right? What do we start to do then? Oof, worry. So recently, University of Virginia decided to test our addiction, our dependency even on distractions. And they simply asked adult male and female professionals to sit alone for 15 minutes. Easy, right? 15 minutes in a room. Now, each participant sat at a table with a red button, and they had to press the red button to start the timer. And when they pressed that red button, it delivered a shock. So powerful that everyone said they'd gladly pay money to never experience that again. So here's what the results of the study showed. Ladies, here's the good news. Only about 55% of you couldn't do it. 55% of the female participants, knowing what would happen, chose to press the red button repetitively, shocking themselves. But wait, come on guys, right? We can't be outdone by the ladies, right? What do you think the percentage of knucklehead guys was? Knowing not to press the button, knowing what, to leave it well enough alone, they couldn't do it, and chose to press the red button. Take a guess and guess high. What do you think? Oh, no way. 96. Almost all of them. 96% of the male participants, knowing what would happen, chose to press the red button, not once, not twice, repetitively. Maybe it won't shock me now, okay? Right? Now, it's hilarious, but think about what that's telling us. All right? Most of us, most of our employees, most of our family or friends can't sit alone for 15 lousy minutes. Right, like, what are we so afraid we're going to see in our mind's eye if we're not looking at Facebook? Right. Are we going to see hand grenade decisions that we're worrying about, keeping us up at night? Hand grenade decisions we've thrown the wrong way. Hand grenade decisions we've dropped. We've got to take back this losing battle against distractions, because the first solution I'm going to share with you, called the double 5 count, has to happen or we can't move forward. We're priming our decision-making pump, getting those distractions out of our system. The double 5 count takes 30 seconds or less to do. I did it while Sean was giving me that great introduction, and it works like this. We're all going to do it with me. Our physiology affects our decision making. If you're tired or angry and you make a decision because you're angry and all hunched in, you're not going to make a good decision. Increasing oxygen to the body, whether you like it or not, believe it or not, will help you make better decisions. So I'd like you to all do this now as we're getting late in the day. Stand up, please. Stand up. Feet shoulder width apart, shoulders back. You can do this. I recommend you do it before you start work. If you can stand up, great. If you can just sit down, back is straight. You can take 5 deep belly breaths with me, shoulders back. Inhale, expand that stomach, and exhale. You keep breathing while I talk. Inhale and exhale. Increasing oxygen increases blood flow. Inhale, exhale. Increasing oxygen increases circulation. Inhale. Posture helps you change your physiology. Exhale, stay standing. 5 times. Okay, simple, maybe takes 10 seconds. Thus, I know we're all smart, the double 5 count, so we're going to do it again. All right, when we do it the second time, I want you to visualize something. The power of visualization pushes out this squirrel that runs around in our mind. We're going to visualize, when we do 5 new breaths, our third place. Now, what is the third place? Well, the third place is where we spend most of our time after the first 2 places, which is, where do we spend most of our time? At work and at work for a lot of you, right? At work, right? At work and at home. Okay, the third place is where you go to work out, to learn a new skill, to de-stress, to be with friends. Maybe you go to the gym, maybe you go hunting, maybe you volunteer at church activities, coach soccer. For me, I love the martial arts. I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I go to my Jiu-Jitsu academy and train. Now, I can't always go and train, but I can visualize. I grew up in rural Pennsylvania. My third place is this beautiful fall foliage. And I want you all to walk in these leaves with me. We're going to visualize this. So take a look at those beautiful colors. Nice and straight, shoulders back, close your eyes. Listen to my voice. As you inhale now, visualize those reds and oranges and yellows. Exhale, inhale, exhale, smell the changing leaves. You know what I mean when it gets fall. Feel the little chill in the air. Gets colder. Inhale, exhale, big deep belly breaths. See those fall leaves. Imagine walking in the leaves, kicking them up, walking with a loved one. Keep big, deep breaths, shoulders back, soft knees. Don't lock your legs, soft knees. Now open your eyes. For some of you, you might want to visualize the mountains or the beach, but you visualize an empowering third place. It takes 30 seconds to do, and I recommend you do it 3 times a day. Do it before you start work and open up your laptop. Do it after lunch when you're sleepy, and do it before any big meeting, any big decision you have to make. You have to prime your decision-making pump. Please have a seat. Thank you very much. We prime our decision-making pump because we are addicted to distractions. We help to win that losing battle. We've got to start making some decisions. So that leads us to trap 2 and solution 2, affectionately called the Ferris Bueller trap. This is a trap of bad balance in our decision-making. Who remembers the iconic 1980s movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? One man's struggle to take it easy. What do we remember about Mr. Bueller? He made decisions from his heart, from his emotions. He'd blow off work, steal a car, romance the ladies, have fun. Now, he would make a great CFO. Not necessarily a chief financial officer, but a chief fun officer. I want him leading the show. So if we make decisions solely from our heart, solely from our gut, solely from our feelings, we're not going to make good decisions. Likewise, there's his polar opposite, this guy. Right? What do we know about Dr. Spock? He's all about logic, data, must compute. Just hope you don't have the wrong data. And if you make decisions too much in art or science, data or instincts, you're not going to make good decisions. In a business case example, Excite was the #2 search engine in 1999 behind Yahoo. They had an opportunity in 1999, I don't know if you knew this or not, to buy this little startup called Google for $750,000. Gasp. The founder of Google, Larry Page, wanted to get rid of that little internet thing he started, go back to Stanford and finish his PhD. So he was selling it. He had showed the Excite leadership that if they purchase Google, use his algorithm, they will increase ad revenue by $100,000 a day. The deal will pay for itself in less than 2 weeks. So George Bell, the CEO of Excite, had his team. They all got together and they said, we got to do it. It's a no-brainer. It's a great deal. George thought about it and said, I know, it'll be branded Excite, I'll run it, it'll be ours, but for the deal to go through, I have to replace my inferior algorithm with Larry's superior algorithm, and if we do that, it's really not going to be my baby. That algorithm's my baby. So in 1999, Mr. Bell passed on buying Google for $750,000. A year later, the tech bubble burst in 2000. All these .com companies went out of business, including Excite. Now, I used to share this statistic, but I have to check it like every day. Today's Google's market valuation is $850 with a B, billion dollars. And they had a chance to buy it because he made a decision from his heart. Now, I'd like you to pause and think. Okay, where do you know you make decisions based on your heart or your head? You guys saw my cute little blonde daughter. She's 4 years old. When she comes telling me, Daddy, you know, it's 8:30, she wants to watch Peppa Pig, if you guys know who Peppa is from cartoons, and she wants to eat candy. I know in my head it's not a good decision, but my heart is saying, yeah, one more piece of candy. Right, and she's up till 10 o'clock at night. So I have devised the highly scientific, the highly delicious solution called the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup solution. And what do we know about Reese's Peanut Butter Cups? It combines the best of both worlds. Chocolate plus peanut butter equals my daughter's favorite fruit group, the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. So this is a writing exercise, and we're all going to do this. There's paper on your tables. Please grab a piece of paper and grab a pencil if you have one. And this is what I'd like us all to do. I'd like you all to pick one decision that you've been putting off making for a couple days, a couple weeks, or a couple months even. What's one hand grenade decision you're holding on to? It could be a little tiny hand grenade decision. What do we dress the kids up for Halloween? Or where do we go over the holidays? It could be a bigger decision you're struggling with. Do I take this new opportunity at a new company? Do I get out of a bad relationship? Do I have that tough conversation with an employee? There is a decision you're putting off making. Or if you made a bad decision, and guess what? I practice this all the time. I still struggle. I put off decisions. I make bad decisions, so I know you're doing it too. So if you have a bad decision you made and you don't see a way out of it, write that down. So jot something you're struggling with. What's keeping you up at night? What's one decision you're putting off making? And then the solution works like this. It's the power of visual display. You should do this with your team, but now we're going to do it solo. If you have a big whiteboard at your office, you can do it as a brainstorming exercise. On one side, you're going to write everything that you're feeling, your thoughts, your instinct is telling you, the Ferris Bueller side. On the other side, you're going to write just the data, the who, what, where, when, why, just the facts. And for example, let's use the example of maybe you have a chance to take on a promotion at work. So if you're deciding whether you need to take on this promotion, on the Ferris Bueller side, the feelings, the gut, what your heart's telling us, maybe it's, I really like my new boss. Or it's interesting work, or I want the challenge, it sounds like fun. Just what you're feeling. And on the other side, just the data. Well, if I take that new job, I'll make 20 grand more. I'll have to travel 30% of the time though. I'll get 4 more direct reports. Just the data. And then what you're looking to do is generate that sweet spot. Look at things visually. See some bad ideas, cross it off. Circle things, move it over, or draw a blank and realize they're all bad ideas. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to work on this, and I'm going to talk while we do. But please, successful people do the things unsuccessful people won't. Let's start working on a decision you're putting off making. 60 seconds. Let's go. We prime our decision-making pump. Our physiology affects our ability to make good decisions. By simply taking deep breaths, adjusting your posture, you're going to adjust blood flow, circulation, and make better decisions. Decision making is a balance between our head and our heart, between data and instinct, between art and science. We're all putting off decisions, little decisions, big decisions. If I can just move you forward a little bit today, you're going to sleep easier because decisions shape our destiny. Don't worry about being perfect as we start to work on this. Our 60 seconds is up, so we're going to have time to continue to work on this, but I'd like you to start to see that you can avoid making fatal decisions like Excite did from our heart. And if you solely rely on data, what if you don't have the right data? Or like when cell phones were coming out, we didn't even have data on that industry now. We're looking to generate in the middle. And that leads us to our third trap and solution, and we'll continue to work on this for the remainder of my talk. Trap 3 is called the Goldilocks trap. This is a trap of extremes in our decision making, because what do we know about the children's fairy tale? Goldilocks was faced with extremes. 3 bowls of porridge, too hot, too cold, just right. She eats it all up, gets a stomachache. 3 chairs, 3 beds, so on and so forth. The Goldilocks trap is traps of extremes. We make a decision too quickly. Have you ever heard of going extinct by your instinct? Or you make a decision too slowly, analysis paralysis. We know there's that person on our team that bottlenecks our projects. You give yourself too many options, the 15 ways to be blah, blah, blah. Or you don't give yourself enough options. And in a classic business case example, RCA was faced with this trap. RCA, Radio Corporation of America, established in 1919, was the premier consumer electronic product company of the 1900s. They were Apple before Apple, Samsung before Samsung, the first company to mass produce and sell transistor radios, black and white TVs, color TVs. It was good to work at RCA for decades. In the 1980s, RCA became so popular, so successful, so big, their leadership team became so many people, the right and left hand didn't know what they were doing, they were making too many decisions, diversifying too much, and in 4 short years they bought the following companies. They bought rental car giant Hertz. They bought Random House, publishing books, magazines, newspapers. And for good measure, they bought a frozen food company. Now, what does frozen foods, publishing, and rental cars have to do with consumer electronics? Zippo, nothing, right? They over-diversified. They were weak. They got away from their core product. GE saw their financial weakness. GE swooped in and bought RCA for pennies on the dollar. Tens of thousands of employees lost their job because the leadership team made too many crazy decisions and didn't focus and keep their eye on the prize. And I know we do that in the decisions we face. So to help you, the rule is easy. It's a 3x15 rule. I'd like you to go back to our Venn diagram, where that decision that you're putting off. Hopefully you're starting to generate some ideas. Take a look at the middle to see what you generated. The mind can only handle 3 pieces of information at once. If you'd like to jot this down, this is something good to jot down. 1 choice is not choice. 2 is just a dilemma, either this or that. You must have 3 choices to have choice. 1 choice is not choice. 2 is a dilemma. 3 choices to truly have choice. Look at your paper. If you have 1 or 2 options, it's not enough. Try harder, especially when you're faced with a big decision. You have to give yourself 3 choices. If you have 4, 5, or more, we have to eliminate. The mind can only handle 3 pieces of information at once. You put in a 4th, it pushes 1 out. So to help you get down to 3, set a timer. We use the Alexa dot in my office. I say, Alexa, set a timer for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. You don't need 15 minutes all the time. Sometimes you need more time. Sometimes you need a lot less. Setting a timer psychologically pulls you forward. It doesn't put pressure. And guess what? I'm going to psychologically pull you forward too. I'm going to set a timer for 60 seconds, and I want you to go back and work on your tough decision that you're putting off making. Take a look. Do you have 1 or 2 decisions? Because that's just a dilemma. Work to come up with 3. And don't worry about getting perfect. Let's get into action now for 60 seconds. Decisions shape our destiny. Don't suffer from the tyranny of how. How could I do what I'm writing? Okay, just come up with good ideas. The how will show itself later on. 1 choice is not choice. 2 choices is just a dilemma, either this or that. You must have 3 choices to truly have choice. We all put off making decisions, and we all suffer over it. We prime our decision-making pump, pushing out the distractions. Physiology affects our ability to make good decisions. Again, don't worry about getting it perfect. Look to generate 3 choices to this tough decision. Or if you've made a bad decision and you have to clean it up, work on that too. Okay, very good. We're going to continue to work on this, and I'm going to give you other resources to help you. So if we generate 3, we still got to get to the 1, the best decision possible. That's where the 4th trap and the 4th solution comes in. The trap of day-old milk. Ugh. This is a trap of historical bias or assumptions that creep into our decision making. And I call it the trap of day-old milk because if you've ever tasted spoiled milk or spoiled anything, you may never want to taste milk again because your assumption is, it might be curdled or spoiled. Blah. And in a classic experiment called the PIKE syndrome, researchers took this freshwater fish called a pike. It grows to about 1 foot, 3 feet, big teeth, it's a predator, it eats other fish. And they put the pike into a fish tank with deliciously docile goldfish. Now, between the 2, there was a removable glass partition. So when the pike was put in the water, it attacked. It went right after those goldfish. But it kept ramming into the glass wall. Then it finally backed up, after getting head trauma. And the researchers removed the glass partition. So there's nothing stopping the angry, hungry, aggressive pike from gobbling up the goldfish. What do you think it did? Unlike us that are probably pretty hungry, I'll be finishing soon, it starved to death. Its historical bias was, if I go over there, its assumption was, I'm going to experience head trauma, so it didn't do anything. And in a classic business case example, Firestone made a similar tragic mistake. Started in 1900 by Harvey Firestone. They provided tires to horses and buggies. In 1905, Harvey Firestone befriended Henry Ford of Ford Motor Company. Soon became the tire supplier for Ford. Throughout the 1900s, as automobiles proliferated, Ford built more auto plants. Firestone built more tire plants to keep up with demand. Demand, demand, demand. The historical bias for decades was there will always be a demand for our tires. In 1976, a little-known French company called Michelin introduced the radial tire to the US market. The radial tire was cheaper to manufacture, safer, more durable, longer lasting, and would soon become a government standard. Now, Firestone knew about radial tires. They did their research. They had a radial tire plant, but their historical bias, their assumption was there will always be a demand for our tires. When the federal government changed the law that everyone had to be on radial tires, they couldn't adjust their big battleship in time. Their demand for regular tires dried up. Japanese tire manufacturer Bridgestone swooped in and purchased Firestone for pennies on the dollar. Tens of thousands of Firestone employees lost their job, and you may see a Firestone branded service shop around, but they're gone. They fell victim to that trap of day-old milk, of historical bias. And I'd like you to pause and think, okay, hopefully you have never muttered these words, although we all have, or you haven't had them muttered to you, but have you ever had that young millennial running up to you with great ideas, and you say, oh, you know what, we tried that before. We tried that HR software. We tried social media stuff. It was, insert your favorite excuse, too expensive, too slow, didn't work. Right, if we're talking about technology, we know technology becomes faster, better, cheaper overnight. Or this one, we've always done it this way. Right? If you've said that, shame on you. Or if you've had that said to you, it crushes your soul. We've always done it this way. Arrgh. So Firestone thought too. So how can we avoid that? How can we avoid that trap? The PIKE test, based on our friend Mr. Pike, the fish. This is a question, it's a filter question, and please, I would encourage you to write this down. I use this especially in hiring decisions. It helps you avoid historical bias, and if you're dealing right, if we've got you down to 3 good choices, it helps you to see which one can be the best. It looks like this. It's a 2-part question. What would have to be true for this option to be the best choice? If, then it to death. What would have to be true for our Firestone normal tires to be the best choice? Well, if we are all in on our billions of dollars of manufacturing on regular tires, then we better not have a competitor with a cheaper, better, safer, longer lasting product. If we're all in on regular tires, then the federal government better not change the law to say our product is obsolete. That's a big if then. Now imagine if a young intern or a young executive would have answered this question and forced Firestone CEO, board of directors to look at their findings. Maybe they'd still be around. So please go back to the solutions you've been generating for that tough problem you're putting off. Run them through this filter question. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to maybe hopefully see some good ideas, get rid of some, and try and find some new ones. Let's take 60 seconds to apply that filter question to the decision you're struggling with. Decisions shape our destiny. Better decisions, better leadership, better outcomes. 35,000 daily decisions we're faced with. Are you pressing the red button, shocking yourself, distracting yourself from those hand grenade decisions? What's keeping you up at night? What are you worrying about? What decision are you not making, or that you can't see any good choices? We unclog our decision-making arteries. We find balance between our head and our heart. We avoid extremes, and we avoid historical bias. Now, please, again, don't suffer from the tyranny of how. How could I do what I'm generating? As perfectionists, as successful people, we get stuck there. Generate ideas, and hopefully for this filter question will help you see forward. Now the 5th trap and solution, I saved the best for last. The 5th trap and the 5th solution is going to help you with all of the rest. It's called the street gang trap. Now, mean streets of Wichita, right? What do we know about a street gang? Okay, there's bad influences. And the street gang trap in our decision making are the bad influences of fear, ego, anger, right? You ever send that angry text? Oh, don't hit send, right? You see employees who do make angry decisions as HR professionals, right? Guilt. You ever make a decision out of guilt? Obligation. I should do this. No. You're going to should all over yourself if you say that, okay? Any decision out of guilt, obligation, a sense of duty, it's not a good decision. I'd like you to all meet Coach Callie Sweeney. Coach Callie, born in 1969 in downtown Detroit, Michigan. His parents were drug addicts. At 6 weeks old, Callie was given away to a woman in the neighborhood. No adoption, no paperwork. He was given away at 6 weeks old. Bounced around from house to house. By the time he was 13, he had been shot and stabbed repetitively. He was illiterate. He didn't know what the word meant. He just knew he couldn't read or write. Finally, he had just been passed along in 11th grade. The teachers didn't want him. He finally dropped out of school. He lived to be 19 somehow. He was literally in a street gang, crime, drugs, violence, making every decision from the street gang trap. Ego, anger, machismo. He had a chance encounter at the age of 19 with an older half-brother. He was 26 years old. His 26-year-old half-brother had a job, had an apartment, had a car, had a girlfriend, none of which at 19 Callie had. Now, as a human being, we have an indomitable will to survive, to better ourselves, to learn, to grow. If we're not growing, we're dying. So did Callie. And Callie said, "Brother, what are you doing that I'm not doing?" And his 26-year-old brother told him something. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, where you hear something at the right time, said the right way, at the right place, and it just, boom, your eyes open. This is what his older brother told him that changed his life. He showed him a picture. He said, "Baby brother, I carry this picture with me wherever I go." And in the picture, he goes, "Here I am. I'm 12 years old. Here are all my little friends." There was about 10 little boys, 11, 12 years old, in Michigan. They're about to go sledding. It's really cold. He goes, "Callie, see all these boys here? They all have something in common with me that I don't. They're all either dead or in jail." And Coach Callie thought everyone he knew, everyone that he had surrounded himself was either already dead or in jail or getting out of jail or on their way to jail. And he knew if he didn't make a change, he would either be dead or in jail or dead in jail very, very soon. Now, it took him a while, but after that conversation, he got an hourly wage job doing construction. He went back and got his GED. He got an apartment. He got a car. He got a girlfriend. 10 years later, in 2007, he opened up the nonprofit downtown Detroit youth boxing gym as a place to give back to kids like him that had no safe place to go. But here's the cool thing. It's not a gym. It's an educational facility disguised as a gym. Before any of those children can work out, they have to spend 2 hours being tutored. And after their workout, 2 more hours. 4 hours a day being tutored by positive male and female role models that teach them not only about schoolwork, but leadership, decision-making, service, acknowledgement, giving back to the community. Last year, 2017, he opened in 2007, so he's been open for 10 years. He moved into a brand new 30,000 square foot facility. He has 800 students enrolled in his nonprofit with a 500 student waiting list to get in. The high school graduation rate in downtown Detroit in a 3-mile radius from his gym is a paltry 37%. From the time Coach Callie opened in 2007 until now, his high school graduation rate is 100%. 98% of those kids go on to college. And how did he do it? How did he go from illiterate, drug-dealing gangbanger to community stalwart, nonprofit master, impacting hundreds of thousands of lives in the revitalization of Detroit? The solution is called the Fab Five. Now, this is going to impact everything we do. Tony Robbins, the big, tall, 7-foot personal improvement guru. Tony Robbins' mentor, the man who trained Tony Robbins, his name is Jim Rohn. Jim has passed away. Jim had a great saying that said, "We are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with." We are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Who do you spend the most time with? Facebook friends don't count. Real live human beings. Some of you are thinking, I don't even have it. I don't know 5 people there. Are there some people that are in that should be out? You know what I mean. You stop taking their texts or their phone calls. They always look at the negative side of life. I had to fire a good friend of mine one time. My buddy John had a great life, but he always looked at the negative side of things. You guys know, right? Look under your chair. There's 30 ways to be unsuccessful. There's 30 ways to make a horrible decision at work. There's 30 ways to be miserable. If you look for them, you're going to find them. You got to get rid of some of those energy vampires. Likewise, are there people you want back in your life that will help you in business and your personal life. And here's the cool thing. I recommend you build a Fab 5 for personal decisions, a Fab 5 for business decisions, because you're going to want to go to those people. They might not help or have the knowledge and skill to make better personal decisions than your business decisions. And here's the other thing. For innovation, to make creative ideas, you can come up with fake people or historical figures or superheroes. You can say, what would Wonder Woman do? What would Superman do? You could have musicians, the real Fab 5, maybe not these guys, but or your favorite tech billionaire. Now, don't talk to your invisible friend. That would be weird, but having a historical figure helps your creativity. But the Fab 5 is very important. Now, we don't have a lot of time today to work on this, but you have tonight and 2 more days of conferences. And look around. There's what, 500 of us? Are you telling me there's somebody you don't want to connect with in here that could help you with that problem you're struggling with? What about you helping somebody else? Right? As human beings, whether you like it or not, we have a need to serve others. I guarantee you could help others. So my challenge to you is to develop your Fab 5 here, your professional Fab 5 over the next couple days. Ask to see what you're struggling with. Share with them what you've written. Ask for help. Because we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Now, here's a Kodak moment. If you'd like to snap a picture of this, you can. And I'm going to make all of this material available to you electronically at the end of my talk. But I'd like you to keep taking notes, because if you're writing, you're remembering. But I'm going to give all of this to you and a whole lot more at the end. Now, I learned to make better decisions and actually improve my life a real hard way. It took me getting cancer. So I had never been sick a day in my life, and at the age of 34, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer, had emergency surgery to remove my right testicle. Now, besides having to put up with some hilariously humiliating jokes from my friends, everything was okay. You know, we caught it early enough. There was no spread into my lymph nodes or other organs. And I had to undergo aggressive observation, so chest, abdomen, and pelvis CAT scans and blood tests every month. Month 1, 2, 3, 4, everything's looking good. I found it early, got it beat. I was like a textbook example. Until I wasn't. You know, my oncologist just walked in and said, hey, Michael, you know, we got to start chemotherapy. A cancer spread to your lungs. Yeah, at that point, all the jokes stop, you know, and I'm sure we all have a personal connection to cancer, right? A friend, a family member. If there's any cancer survivors or patients here, I'd love to talk to you more. So all cancer treatments are different. In my case, I had a very aggressive form of cancer that had metastasized to my lungs, and I had to have a very aggressive form of chemotherapy. Radiation wouldn't work. With chemotherapy, most people go once a week or once every 2 weeks. So I had to go every day, Monday through Friday, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., 6 hours every day, for 3 months. Now, via Sean's excellent introduction, I'm a pretty tough guy, but you're not tougher than cancer. No one's tougher than cancer. No one's tougher than chemotherapy. I made it through those 3 months. And I had to undergo one more treatment to be cancer-free. Final surgery. Surgery to remove half of my left lung, where those dead tumors resided. It was a success, but at a cost. At age 34, at the height of my physical prowess, I was left crippled in a wheelchair, unable to do anything. My mom was taking care of me again at age 34, and when I say unable to do anything by myself. The body is an amazing machine. You know, the spirit, the will to survive. A few months after that, I was able to stand up out of the wheelchair and just shuffle around my home. A few months after that, I was able to walk. About a year later, I went for a very short jog. And then a few years later, I ran my first marathon on 1.5 lungs as a fundraiser for the American Cancer Society. And the reason I share this story with you, ladies and gentlemen, is I don't want you to have to suffer the same way I did. You see, I was going through every one of those decision-making traps that I shared with you today, and I had no solution for them. I had reached a level of success in my life, but I had become successfully miserable. And it took a life-threatening illness like cancer to show me where I was struggling. I was holding on to hand grenade decisions, afraid to make them, throwing hand grenade decisions the wrong way, dropping them. I had become successfully miserable. I would wake up at night worrying about things. I was connected to my cell phone like you wouldn't believe. And I don't want that for you. I don't want you to have to go through a bad divorce because you're at work 24/7, or abuse drugs and alcohol because you see no way out, or suffer with obesity, high blood pressure, hypertension. The time is now. Those 35,000 daily decisions we're faced with is real. Those traps I shared with you, whether you like them or not, you're falling into them. Your staff, your employees, your family, your friends. But the solutions also work. It's a practice. That concept of mushin is a practice. You get better at making decisions. You move that stuck decision that you're struggling with forward. And as a final example, let's all take a look. Who remembers this iconic brand of Old Spice, right? Who remembers these porcelain bottles? Started in 1936. They had 1 scent, and I don't even know if you want to call it that, called Glacial Falls. All right, their marketing plan, like literally word for word, was to sell to the distinguished older gentleman. And how many people remember buying those box sets for the older gentleman in your life? Like, I bought them for my dad and my grandfather, talcum powder, all that stuff. Now, think of your company, your business, your product or service. If you do not have the word old in it, you're doing okay? All right, so these guys already got a knock against them. They got old. It's like saying old, lousy car. Would you like to buy it? But it worked for them, okay? Until 2008, when it didn't. Now, what competitor came on the scene in the early 2000s to challenge Old Spice? Who knows? Right? All those cool boys spraying themselves down with Axe body spray. Yeah. These guys were literally going out of business overnight. And they started with what I finished off with you, the Fab Five. Everything flows from there. They hired a Fab Five to help them navigate these decisions to stay alive. They hired this great creative firm called Weedman & Kennedy that helped them navigate all of the traps, but especially the Ferris Bueller trap. Remember that one, the trap of your heart, head and your heart? The CEO is emotionally attached to these porcelain bottles. He didn't want to get rid of them. They were too expensive to manufacture. Nobody besides like the hipsters in Brooklyn were buying them, so they're not going to stay afloat. So Weedman & Kennedy, the Fab Five, helped them navigate all of the traps I shared with you to make good decisions. And in 2010, Old Spice rolled out Old Spice Swagger. And here's the hilarious thing. Still called old, all right? Still's got the ship on it. Okay, I guess it's a spice ship from the old world or something. Still smells the same. Okay, but they made it fun again. If you've seen these commercials, I know you've seen them. I don't use Old Spice, but they laughed at themselves. They made themselves relevant. I don't use it, but I can't get them out of my mind. If you've seen this latest commercial, it's in French. The woman names her dog Old Spice and yells at it. It's hilarious. They made it fun and memorable again, and in 2012, they had a goal to double sales to that elusive market of males aged 12 to 34. Like every marketer's dream, how do we tap in that market? Age 12 to 34, they needed to double sales. Because they made better decisions, after a 2-year period, they quadrupled sales. And my goal is I want you to get your decision-making swagger back. Not an arrogance, but a confidence. Knowing that you have a simple system to face HR decisions, personal decisions, big hand grenade decisions, little decisions, because everything that we do is based on the decisions we make that shapes our destiny. And now I have 2 parting gifts for you. I gave you a lot of information, but everything I've shared with you today, please take a moment to write this down, is at my resource page, michaelveltri.com/go. It's the very tough to remember password of 2018. There's nothing salesy about it. You don't need to give an email. No one's going to sell you anything. All of the trap solutions and a whole lot more resources are there for you to use. Download, share with your team. Because think of, again, I'm an HR professional myself. We're kindred spirits. If you're making better decisions, you're impacting your career, your company, and your community. And as we start to wind down, I'd like you to do one other thing for me. On the table are envelopes. Please grab an envelope. Okay, it's called the law of diminishing return. I've given you a lot of tools and distinctions. You have a resource, but tomorrow life is going to get in the way. You're going to be faced with 35,000 decisions, and you're going to start to forget this. So what I'd like you to do is get a fresh sheet of paper, and I want you to write down 4 things. You're going to put this in the envelope and address the envelope to yourself. I'm going to mail it to you 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now, when you're distracted and you're wondering, what do I do in this situation? You're going to get a reminder from yourself. Write yourself a note. Hey, really do this. Okay, and these are the 4 things I want you to write down. Write down my resource page so you can go back and take advantage of it. And then I want you to write down the 3 Ds. What is that decision you chose today that you will no longer be a victim to? What is that hand grenade decision you've been putting off making? Write it down. What are you doing about it? What action items did you come up with? What would have to be true for this option to be the best choice? If then it. Write down a couple things. Don't worry about how you're going to do it. Don't fall victim to the tyranny of how. Get into action. Any action is better than no action. And the third thing is give yourself a timeline by when. You know what, I'm going to decide whether or not I'm going to take this new job by next week, September 20th. Write it down. You will get this letter from yourself in 2 weeks. Hopefully that will support you again. Because again, we need that practice. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Grab an envelope, please. The to and from is your same address. When you're done, just leave it on your table. We're going to collect it up and we'll mail it to you. So let's take 2 minutes to fill that out, please. Decisions shape our destiny. Successful people do the things unsuccessful people won't. What stuck decision are you moving forward today? Write it down. What are you doing about it? What action items can you do to move that decision forward? By when? What is the date that stuck decision will no longer keep you up at night? Extra credit, jot yourself a little note and say, hey, I really had fun today. Address it to and from yourself, leave it there, we'll collect it up and mail it to you. We are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? If you need a little more time, you can finish up when we wrap up here and just leave that envelope on the table. We'll collect it up from you. And as we go to wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, again, I'd like you to think that often when we're faced with those hand grenade decisions, we wrap more and more fear in our minds, sometimes to the point of paralysis. But when we pause and stop and think, we have a system for making better decisions. We realize that it's simply a practice. You get your decision-making swagger back, and you become decision-making artists. And my goal for you is to arm you for decision-making battle. So whether it's a tough conversation with your boss, having to fire your best friend, or simply deciding to get out of that poisonous relationship, you have a system for doing it. That's the practice of the Mushin way. That's the exercise of seeing clarity to see the right decision at the right time all the time. And for the SHRM Council, I dealt with a lot with Natalie and Amy and all the other leaders here. Thank you all for making a great decision, for bringing me up on stage and for listening. I'm in no rush. I'm going to be outside. And if you need more time, here's the information. Thank you all again. Enjoy your conference, and please come by and say hello and let me know it's a tough decision you're struggling with. Thank you all very much.
sir.
Thank you very much.